We are live. We are live. Oh my goodness. I have not been live in 2 weeks and it feels like forever, but we're right back in the stride again. I was like, what word is that? Right back in the stride, right back in stride again. Welcome to the Good Fight. If this is your first time joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your umpteenth time joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are joining us live, you are welcome. If you are joining us during some other time, during the regular rhythm of your life, welcome, welcome, welcome. However you show up, whenever you show up, you are welcome in this space. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Yes. It is so good to be home, y'all. I've been gone. I've been enjoying myself, but I am glad to be home. I want to let you know that there are ways always that you can engage with the Good Fight. This is not meant to be a lecture. This is not meant to be didactic. This is all about just engaging in conversation. And the purpose of the conversation is to challenge how we live our faith. Whatever your faith is, even if you have decided not to have a faith, or if you are questioning whether or not you want to consider yourself a faithful person, wherever you are on the spectrum of faith, this is a space for you that's designed to get you to ask questions about how your faith compels you to show up in interactions with humans. How do you, and not just with humans, I focus on humans, but our faith should extend to the whole of creation. That's not my forte, talking about the whole of creation. So I'm not going to put myself there. I'm only going to talk about the interactions with people. But I do want to acknowledge that this conversation is bigger than just humans. It includes nature and it includes all things created, all things spiritual. And so I just want to make sure that I say that. And so there are ways that you can engage so that it's interactive for you. And one of the ways that you can engage is to locate yourself in the story. I am a strong believer in stories. I love to tell stories. I love to collect stories. I love to share stories. I love to challenge stories. I love to read stories. I like to watch stories. I was on the plane and to Italy, and it was so long. I can't remember because it was like 9 hours, but then we had to stop and it was another 7 hours. It took 2 days. It was a long time. But one of the perks is that you have free movies and on the plane. And so Miss Leola was asking me about it today. And I was saying, by the time you get through watching a couple of movies, reading a book, going to sleep, eating, you're there. So it doesn't feel that bad. But I watched the movies. One of them was Lift. I watched Inside Out 2. I watched a couple of others that I can't remember the name of. They were independent. Shame on me for not remembering the names of them, but they were independent films. They weren't very long, but every single movie that I watched brought me to tears. And that is the power of storytelling. I'm over here trying to get to Rome so that I can see all of these amazing sculptures. Like I wanted to go to every museum I could find. Absolutely. But I wanted to go to the Sistine Chapel, if I didn't do anything else, I wanted to make sure that I saw that. But I'm trying to get there. Here I am, on this flight, and I am just brought to tears. I'm just crying and snotting and carrying on. And so I believe in, hey, Hotep, I see you. So I believe that when we think about the Bible, I think that it is helpful or could be helpful. So I'm offering this up for consideration. It could be helpful to think about the Bible as a story, that even when you read it from Genesis to Revelation, rather than thinking about this as the exact words of God that we must follow or else we're going to hell, that this is a story that we are coming in on because the story was already at work, in place before we arrived on the scene, before we were born, before we were created, before we became who we are right now. And so the story, when we think about it as story, where are you in that story? Who are you in this story? Like when we begin to talk about the text, like find yourself in the text. That's one of the ways that you can engage with the Good Fight. Another way that you can engage is to look through a window where you realize that. So one of the movies I just told you that I watched was called Lift. And it was about this young man who is, I got something in my mouth. It's about this young man who is now the artistic director of the New York City, thank you, New York City Ballet. His name is Steven, and the story is about him growing up housing insecure, and he was introduced to a program that taught him ballet. And he has now returned to the same place where he lived in the same shelter, and he's offering to these children the same opportunity that he had to learn ballet, with the hopes that the ballet will offer them an opportunity out of their situation the same way that it did for him. And he's not trying to force that. He's just offering the opportunity. And then the story tracks those like 3 or 4 or 5 students and see how far they go with the ballet. And so I'm not housing insecure. I did not grow up housing insecure. I've never lived in a shelter. As a matter of fact, the only experience I have with a shelter is when I was in seminary. I can't remember the name of the class. But as part of the class, we had to take the bus. One day we had no money. We just had to, it was like an immersive experience. Like, what would it be like if your life looked like this? If you had to navigate life without money, without transportation, if you lived in a shelter, those kinds of things. And so it allowed us to go. We went to a shelter, and I don't think we spent the night. I don't remember if we spent. I think we might have spent the night, because I remember we had to get out of there at 7:00. We had to be out of the shelter at 7:00. And so anyway, I don't have a real life experience, because even though I was immersed in the shelter, even overnight, that's not a real life experience, because I just got up the next morning and I took a shower, washed all of that off of me, and I went on about my business. But a person who lives this, that's an entirely different story for them to tell. And so for this reason, I was looking through a window. This was not my story. I don't have any knowledge of this. I don't have anything that it conjures up. There are no triggers for me. I was trying to put myself in somebody else's shoes, but that's not the same as walking in them. And so that's one of the ways that you can engage with this story that you're reading. This understanding of the Bible, this interpretation of the text is not yours at all, but you give yourself over to the conversation and you receive it as a gift. And wherever it takes you, it takes you. Wherever it doesn't take you, it doesn't take you, and that's okay. And so it says, when preparedness meets opportunity, the world will be your oyster. This is low. When preparedness meets opportunity, the world would be your oyster. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think what I'm struggling with in this particular statement that you made is, what happens when you are prepared, but you don't get the opportunity because you are denied? Right? And I think that's going to be part of the conversation that we have tonight about who gets to decide for us, who gets to determine for us. I really think that if the world was fixed so that we did not put up barriers, we did not erect barriers for folks, and all I had to do was prepare what I believed was my best route for my life. I believe my path is to be a chef. So I'm going to go to culinary school. I'm going to get out, and I want to be able to work in the best Michelin stars. But then because I'm Black, no Michelin star will let me come in and stage with them. Like, what is that about? So I agree with you 100%. I just wonder sometimes how many opportunities people lose because other folks don't grant them for one reason or another. And I do think that we're going to talk about that more tonight. A third way that you can engage with the good fight is to walk through a door. So kind of just like now with Lo. So when he says this about, he made a statement, and then I took a moment to say, well, okay, I receive your statement, and let me think about it some more. Let me add to that. Let me figure out what that feels like in my body. Let me think about it from my perspective. And so that's what the third way of engaging is about. It's about asking yourself to think more deeply, to think more broadly, to consider more situations, circumstances, engage other stories, do some research, have some more conversation, and then see where it goes. And so here's Lo. That's the point. Those lack of opportunities when people are qualified, especially Black folks. Yeah, and then when I'm thinking about this particular story, again, it was called Lyft, Lyft. when I'm thinking about this particular story. So you have these children who are 4 and 5 and 6 years old. You have this one young man, Victor, that we meet when he's 10. Like, they don't have any control over these situations and circumstances at all. They have nothing to do with it. So Stephen, when he tells a story about his life, he said that one day they came home. So they were living in this house, they were living in a house, and it was managed by a different landlord. They got a new landlord, and the new landlord did not want to honor the contract that the old landlord had with his mama. So they put him out overnight. Overnight, I think he was 7. I really think he was 7. So overnight, at 7 years old, you are now locked out of the home that you've known for 7 years. And then he said they had to break into their house, to get their old house, to get his own stuff, because they had locked the doors. And he said his mama went around to the back, shattered a window, and was able to unlock the door so they can get some of their own things. Overnight, his life changed just like that, and he's 7. And so when we're talking about you deny opportunities to people, I'm not sure that we really think about how many folks are affected. The ripple effects of your denial are far reaching, and many times we don't think about that. So here this 7-year-old is, his life was just in turmoil after that, just trying to figure out what it means to have a home again. And when he went back to visit the shelter, at one moment we were looking at him and talking, and the next minute he was on the ground. He fainted because he was back in that space for the first time in like 20 years, and all of that came crashing down on him from 20 years ago, and he passed out. Right. And so, yeah, to deny people opportunities, that is, and especially, like, it's not like you're denying an opportunity because they're not quite ready yet. They need more training or they need more preparedness. It's just because of how you feel about them, which is based on a lie, which is based on a myth. So yeah, the denial of opportunities, we're going to talk about that. And then the final way that you can engage the good fight is to come in here, like right now, like Lois doing. Or even when this is over, after I end the stream and leave the studio, you'll still be able to reach out to me. Or if you want to come text me or call me, my number is 228-236-7440, 228-236-7440. That is my number. I don't mind you reaching out at all, anytime. So I think that I think I need to confess right now. Maybe I've backed myself into a corner and feeling like we have to keep talking about the sins of Christianity. So I just want to say that I'm not sure I'm gonna keep up with this series. I don't think it's necessarily necessary. I think it was something that was on my mind a little while ago, and I kind of chased it. And now I'm like, oh, I need another sin. I'm like, in a few minutes ago, I was like, actually, Denise, you don't need another sin. You really can stop talking about this. And so it just depends on how I feel. It just depends on what happens in my body, whether or not we keep talking about the sins of Christianity. But here we are, part 5 of Sins of Christianity. And I want to make sure that I continue to give my disclaimer that when I say sin, my definition of sin that I am using for the purposes of this conversation simply means to miss the mark. You set a goal for yourself, and for whatever reason, you are unable to achieve that goal. It might be because of situations beyond your control. It might be because you just got tired. It might be because you ran out of time. It might be because you changed your mind. It might be because you got upset. It might be because somebody else made you mad or they changed their mind. Like, whatever it is that caused you not to reach your goal, then that is what I am calling a sin, because it simply means to miss your mark. The great thing about looking at sin in this way is that there's no condemnation at all because you miss your mark. You have a time to recalibrate, rethink, reimagine, and give yourself another opportunity to reach the goal or not. You might decide there's no longer a goal that you want to achieve, and then you just move on from there. And so that's the kind of sin that I'm talking about. It's not the sin that is defined as what puts a barrier between you and God. It's not the kind of sin that separates you from God. It's not the kind of sin that you have to repent for. You have to get down on your knees and pray and hope that God sees your heart. It's not that at all. It simply means that you did not reach the goal that you set for yourself. Nobody else is setting these goals. You set them for yourself. And then when we talk about Christianity, we're talking about the organized religion. We're not talking about a relationship that you have with God as Jesus as your mediator. The same as a person has with a Buddha, and then they have their journey as their mediator, right? Like nirvana is their goal, and then Buddha is their mediator to nirvana. Like, so it, regardless of how you look at it, that relationship that's personal, that's spiritual, that is sacred, that is holy, that is yours. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the organization of Christianity, organization of religions, where we get this book that tells us, or we get these practices, these doctrines, these principles that tell us we must do these things, or else there is some consequence that we ascribe to a God. We say that God will do these things if we don't, or if we do act a certain way, but we don't know for sure what God is going to do, because God is not a person that we can understand. God is spirit, and God moves in ways that are not able to be, that are not tangible, and not able to be written down in a book and codified. Like, they're not. And so I'm talking about the organization of religion as a means of power, a measure of control in our lives to get us to do a certain thing based on whoever came up with the structure at the time, and based on how those structures change. And so when we think about the Bible and the way that it was practiced way back when in ancient days, it's certainly not the way that we are practicing the Bible now. It's certainly not the way that people will be practicing it in 3 or 4 or 5 generations. And again, that goes for any faith. So I'm only talking about the organization of religion that has missed its mark in trying to get us, or in trying to mold us and shape us in being a certain kind of faithful person, when I do not believe that that should be the goal of religion at all. I really think we could live without religion. Just let people believe what they want to believe, but that's another story. And so that's what I mean. So the sins are missing, that's missing the mark, whatever goal you set for yourself. Christianity, the organized religion of Christianity, that's what I am challenging on tonight, saying that as we think about religion as a system, it continues to fail us. It continues to fail us. I just got a message from, and I saw it pop up. That's my bad. Let me put this on do not disturb. So that won't happen again. Sorry about that. So the sin for tonight that I'm offering up is the sin of holiness. I'm asking us to consider whether or not that is something. No, I'm asking us to consider that it is a sin. It is for us to pursue holiness, is for us to miss the mark. It's for us not to achieve our goal. It does not help us on the path of being in right relationship with a spiritual deity that we have decided should govern, should help us along our path, or should strengthen us for our journey. I'm suggesting that holiness is not something that should even be on the agenda for us at all. Let me see what Lo is saying. The word religio had a range of meanings, including good faith, ritual, scrupulousness, conscientiousness, devotedness, or felt obligation. In ancient Rome, religio was a term used to describe the practice of properly honoring the gods, which was believed to lead to social harmony, peace, and prosperity. The word religion comes from the Latin word religio, which is a combination of the words re, meaning again, and legare, meaning bind or connect. And then, did you give us the rest of it? Because it looks like it stopped. The word's origins are no, and it stops right there. And so I think that that's a great point that you're making about what it means when we talk about religion. The whole goal of religion is to bind you to something. And we think about that in terms of principles, in terms of doctrine, in terms of scripture, in terms of rituals. So we bind ourselves to these things with the hope of living into this spirituality that we believe is meant for our lives. And so that is the root of the problem when we think about organized religion, is that it is designed to restrict you to whatever the structure is that somebody has come up with, which may or may not be what your path, your spiritual path is. You don't even get an opportunity to explore your spiritual path because you've already been indoctrinated indoctrinated to believe this is what it looks like. And anytime you stray away from what it looks like, then there are consequences within your community that are unfair many times, and then also unnecessary. Like, who gets to decide for me what my spiritual journey should be like? Nobody should do that. And so to bind us to, and then to bind again. So it's like, well, this is what you should have been doing, and you strayed away from it. And so now we want to bring you back to who you should be. And so that's what Lo is doing, reminding us of what the word religion means. It means to bind. And most of us, if you like me, the last thing I want to do is to be bound. Like, I'm looking for freedom. I want liberation, and I want to offer that to everybody else. And so when we think about holiness, we have to ask ourselves, now, what does it mean to be holy? And there are, just like with the word religion, like there are different ways that you can look at the word holiness. And one of those ways is to think about it as being set apart. I focus my conversations always in the organized religion of Christianity because I grew up as a cradle Christian. And so that is what I know best. But I believe that what I'm saying can be applied to whatever faith you practice, because as I said before, they are all earlier. All of the religions are formulated. They follow the same formula. And so those of us who believe in Christ, we're trying to get to heaven through Jesus, and we are the people. So here we are, there's a mediator, Jesus, and we're trying to reach this level. If you are Buddhist, you are the people here. You're trying to get to nirvana, and then Buddha is your mediator. And so all of the religions can follow that kind of, as a person, I'm trying to attain some heights of spirituality, and there's somebody or something that helps me to get there. And so I'm talking about Christianity, but I believe that the formula, the structure can be applied to any religion that you name. And so when we think about holiness as in the sense of organized Christianity, it's about setting yourself apart. And so there's this whole notion that we are of the world because we were born into this world, but we're not supposed to, we're in the world. We live in the world, but we're not of the world. And so we live in this world as humans. Like, we were created as humans. We have bodies, we have flesh. And so here we are in this world, but because we have resigned ourselves to living a spiritual life, to being holy, that means we have set ourselves apart. The holiness makes us different in the way that we live, in the things that we believe, and how we act, and what we say, and what we choose not to say. So our behavior is patterned after this notion and this idea that I do not belong to what other people belong to. And so there's a separation of me from what others are doing. And in this case, those people who were not members of the way, because Christianity has not always been known as Christianity. When we look at the gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, when we look at the creation of the church, it was born out of the system that was called the way. This was a way of living. And if you believed that Jesus is the Messiah, because these are all Messianic Jews. So these are people who were Jewish who did not initially believe that there was another God, because Jews are monotheistic, meaning there was only God. That God is Yahweh. There's only one God. So for there now to be this person who comes onto the scene and then says that he too is God, and then we created not just a duotheistic, bitheistic. How you say two gods? A binaryistic? I think I'm just over here making up words. But not only did we say now there's God and Jesus and they are both one, the Christian faith takes it another step and says they're three in one. You've got God, who they call Father, Jesus, who they call Son, and they have the Holy Spirit, who they call the Holy Spirit. Now, for those of you who are looking for more inclusive language to use around the Trinity, which is this is sign language for 3, 1, 2, 3, because this is not 3 in sign language, that's 6. This is 3 in sign language. And so you cover them up and you come up with 1. So you take 3 and you turn them into 1, and that becomes the Trinity. And so we have this, if you want looking for more inclusive language, you can say God, the creator, Jesus, the redeemer, and then you say the Holy Spirit, our sustainer. So just giving you some other words so that you don't feel like you are painting God to be a man, or that you are using only masculine pronouns all the time to to relate or to refer to God when we know that God is a spirit. So there's no way that God has a body. There's no way that God has pronouns. There's no way that God has an image that you can paint. Like you cannot paint in a spirit. Like it's just not possible. And so we have created like these three gods in one. So these Jews who first believed that there was only one God, and that is Yahweh, who then met Jesus and began to believe that Jesus too is God, then they became Messianic Jews. They believed that Jesus is the one that the Jews have been looking for, and the other Jews didn't see Jesus as that Messiah. They continue to wait for the Messiah even to this day. They believe they've already found him, and so they were known as Messianic Jews. So as Messianic Jews, these are Jews who believe in Jesus as Messiah, Jesus as Savior, Jesus as the one who has come to redeem the world and to put the nation back where it's supposed to be. Then they called it the way. This is the way. That's what it was called. And so for those people who were following the way, then they were in the world, meaning that they were part of the normal cultures that were around them, and they never tried to take themselves out of the world. They didn't say we're going to go to another country. They didn't say we're going to migrate to another state. They didn't say anything like that. They said we're going to live where we live among the people that are living with that are living here with us. And even though they have their own set of beliefs, we have our own set of beliefs, and our holiness, our behavior, our thought process, our rituals, our beliefs set us apart from the rest of what's happening in the world. So we are in them, right beside them. We are right beside them as humans, but our spirit sets us apart from them because we are aligned with Jesus, who is the Messiah. Again, this can be applied to any faith. Whatever your faith is, it is not the faith of other folks. So your faith separates you from the way you think. Let's think about a person who's a Jehovah's Witness. Now, there are people amongst us. Denzel Washington is a Jehovah's Witness, unless he's changed. But there are people who live amongst us who some of us can reach out and touch, who are just Jehovah's Witnesses. But they are set apart in the way that they behave, because they do not celebrate birthdays, holidays, Christmas, those kinds of things. So even though they are living in a world where holidays are huge, this capitalistic regime makes millions and billions of dollars off of us because of celebrating holidays. When you start in January, from January to December, you are constantly celebrating something that causes you to spend money that you don't have to spend. Like, why do you need to spend money on an Easter suit to go to church on Resurrection Sunday? Like, it's just not necessary. And so these people who are Jehovah's Witnesses, they are living right beside us. They are human just like us. They go to work just like us. Like, everything is happening, but they are set apart by what they believe and how they act according to their faith. And so that is one of the definitions of holiness, is to set yourself apart based on what you are thinking. Now, I don't think that there's anything wrong with having your own core belief systems. I don't. The problem comes when we begin to think about how we are indoctrinated around this set apartness, this separateness, this I am in the world but not of the world, is that we attach judgment to it as well. We attach a value system to our separation. So because I am a Christian and you're not, then I am somehow superior. Because I am a Jehovah's Witness and you're not, I am somehow superior. I'm one of those 144,000 that are going to be saved at the end. So we begin to see each other based on the separateness, not rather than seeing the separateness as one of the things that gives life its fullness, its robustness, that we have the freedom to believe what we want, and that we can carry the stories of our faith, and we can share those stories, and we can engage in those stories, and we can see the similarities and the differences in those stories, and they can help to round us out as humans. Instead of looking at it like that, we see it as, oh, you one of them, you not like us. And that is where the problem lies. And that is why I'm saying that we should not even aspire to be holy if it means that we are separating ourselves from another person. Can y'all see that? I don't know what all that's going on. That we're separating ourselves from another person because they don't believe what we believe. And that is what we are living. That's the kind of world we're living in now, where just because you think differently, then you're not worthy of being in relationship with me. You're not worthy of my friendship. You're not worthy of my time. You're not worthy of my gifts. You're not worthy of my talent. I'm only looking for people who believe like me. Even on Facebook, I thought I'm not huge on Facebook. I'm not, but I thought in my mind that Facebook was a space where you were that was creative. You say whatever you want to say. Like I can, because people say stuff on Facebook that I know for a fact you would not say if you were standing in front of that person. Especially me. Sometimes people are commenting, and I'm like, they must don't know who they talking to. Well, they don't be talking to me. That's why I can say it, because I'm reading comments. Yeah, I'm reading comments on somebody else's timeline, and I'm like, I wish they. Come, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. So I thought that Facebook was this space that was created so that you can be free in your expressions about whatever it is that's being said online. Because once you put it out there on Facebook, you give people the right to comment on it. But then I made a comment on one person's timeline where I disagreed with them about an artist. I disagreed about Usher having done a great job at the Super Bowl, and it was like it went off. Like, how dare you? And I was like, oh, I thought this was a space where you can say whatever you want to say. And so the way that we are living now is that we only want to be in those spaces where everybody thinks just like we do, everybody feels like we do, everybody believes like we do, everybody acts like we do, everybody wants the same things that we do, and that is causing the problem. So when we think about holiness in the way we've been programmed to believe, indoctrinated to believe that it's good for us to be set apart because we are somehow we are somehow superior to those because of our faith, then that means that we are missing the mark. We've absolutely missed the mark, and therefore we have sinned. Another way that we think of holiness is that we attach a moral value to it. We say that if I'm holy, then that means that I'm going to do good. The problem with that is who gets to define what good is, especially when we think about religion. There are some sects of Christianity where they say some denominations in Christianity, which will say that you should not wear makeup. It is not good to wear makeup. So if I'm striving for holiness and I wear makeup, then I'm gonna not reach my goal. I'm gonna sin because I can't reach my goal because you said to wear makeup is not good. Well, who said to wear makeup is not good? Where did you get that from? You say, well, the Bible says you should, in the New Testament, that women should not adorn themselves. Yeah, but in the Old Testament, do you remember they got all of that jewelry and they made the calf out of it? Like, where did all that gold come from? It wasn't just men that had gold. And so somebody decided now we're going to shift to where jewelry isn't good when we saw it was good at one time. So who gets to make these decisions to define what is good? And then why do we feel like they are worthy of our following them, that they are worthy of telling me that if I wear makeup, I'm not holy? Like, why do we give them that kind of power over our spiritual lives? It says, however, using that train of thought of being set apart, the Bible states that let us come together and reason. Well, and that's just it. I don't. One of the problems that I have with the Christian faith is that we want to center everything in the New Testament. So because of the book of John, the Gospel of John, in chapter 1, where it starts out saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and all things that were made by God. Nothing that was made was not made by God. Okay. And then as you continue on, you get to verse 14, and it says, and the Word became flesh. And so when we say the Word became flesh, we now say that God became, this is the manifestation, this is the personification of God through the person of Jesus Christ. And so now once Jesus comes onto the scene and says, well, we're no longer going to be concerned about living the law. Now we're going to live under grace. Many people have now just taken the Old Testament and thrown it away, and they only want to live in the New Testament. So they only want to talk about what the New Testament says. And so I'm going to pull it up in a minute where they get this holiness from in the New Testament without even regarding where God says, I want us to sit down together and think about this. Come, let us reason together. Let's think about this. And when God says it, let's reason together, God says, let's be in conversation about this. Even God positions God's self as one that says, I'm not trying to dictate to you. I'm not trying to control you. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm saying I recognize because you are mine in covenant with me because I created you. That means that my energy lives within you. The essence of who I am is the essence of who you are. So just as you honor me, I honor you. Just as you respect me, I respect you. Just as you are concerned about how I'm going to move in your life, I'm concerned about how you're going to move in your life. So let us bring ourselves together as divine, and let's just have a conversation. Let's have a spiritual conversation. Like, what does your body feel when you are in my presence? What does your mind, what is ignited in your mind that leads you to make decisions when you know that I am right beside you, comforting you in and through your entire being? Like, God is like, let's think about what it means for us to be a part of each other all the time. Like, God is inviting us into that. But then we get over here to the New Testament and we're like, oh no, Jesus said, do this, do that. And if you don't, you're going to hell. We can't separate the two parts of the Bible. We just can't. And that's part of the reason that we find ourselves sinning so much, is because of the misinterpretation that we have of the Bible. Not the Bible itself, but the misinterpretation, which is what is the indoctrination that many of us are following. And so that's why we're trying to have this conversation. The good fight is about how do we lift ourselves out of the constructed faith to a deconstructed faith that says, I want to live spiritually. I want to live a spiritual life that is not governed by somebody else's ideas of what it ought to look like, that is not rooted and grounded in a book that somebody put together because they had an agenda, they had a political strategy that was at play, that they were pulling from myths and now calling them truths for us. Like, I'm not going to be bogged down in that. I'm going to free myself so that I'm able to commune with my spirit, in my spirit, with whatever that spiritual deity is. Again, whether that's nature, whether that is God, whether that is Buddha, whether that is Jehovah, it does not matter to me what it is. What matters to me is how you do it, how you practice it. And so this idea of holiness as a moral, thinking about it as moral, a moral way of being, is that you are now defining for somebody what is right and what is wrong. And so I think the best definition, well, first let me pull up the scripture that this is coming from tonight. And then I want to talk about a story that I think best demonstrates the sin of holiness in our midst, even now in 2024. So the scripture is found in Hebrews chapter 12, and it's verses 14 through 17. And I have it in two different translations. I've got it in the easy to read translation and also the easy English translation of the Bible. Just because of the words, the language that they're using, I was attracted to the language. So that's the only reason that I have them in those. You can choose whatever version works best for you. I know my friend Nikki, she loves the Message. And so whatever version works for you, this is just the one that I picked because it spoke to me in this moment. So here we go. This is Hebrews chapter 12. This is the easy. Oh, wait a minute. Why is that? Oh, wait, y'all, I think I put them in the wrong spot. I wonder why they look like that. Let me pull this up really quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Sorry, y'all, I put them in the wrong spot. Here they come right here. Sometimes I have pictures to show y'all and I get to talking and I forget to show them to you. I'm like, oh, that would have been so much more clear if I had put the picture up. So I'm going to do better. I got one more that didn't come up. I need that one. So, okay, so here it is. This is Hebrews chapter 12, verses 14 through 17. This is the easy English translation. Do everything that you can to live in peace with other people. Make yourself separate from bad things. Nobody will see the Lord unless their life is good and clean. Remember that God is very kind. Nobody should refuse to let God help them. Make sure that nobody among you causes trouble so that people turn against God. A person who is angry against God is like poison. He spoils many other people's lives so that God does not accept them. So I chose the easy English because of its use of good and bad. Separate yourself from bad things. Okay. How do you define what is bad? Then it talks about how you need to live a good life. And it says you have to live a good life, because if you don't live a good life, then you are going to turn, your life will make somebody else's life bad. Your life will get somebody else to not be in relationship with God. I'm like, how my life gonna affect like? But that's what this says. So this use of good and bad was why I wanted to use the English easy English version. And then to talk translation, and then to talk about the word bad. When I looked up, I wanted to look up like what is bad. Like how are we defining bad according to just what comes up on the internet, or even if you just look it up in a dictionary. And so more than one site, there was this list of bad things. And the list of bad things was like killing, raping, stealing. And I'm like, okay, I think that many people would agree with that. But then it also said that lying and broken promises were also bad. And then I said, lying is bad. If we think lying is bad, that's interesting, because we lie so much. And I started thinking about how often we lie. The number one lie that I thought about was what we call white lies. And even when I thought about white lies, I said, let's just think about this for a moment. We lie so much, and we're trying so hard to justify our lies, that we've put them into categories. And we've said, okay, there's a white lie, which means it's not a very bad lie. So if you ask me, do I look fat in these jeans? Which is what this stuff happens on TV. I don't think women, I don't know nobody ask somebody else there. But anyway, if somebody asks you that, and then you say you think they do, but you say no, you don't think that that's it's a lie, but you don't think it's a big deal because it's a white lie. And so in order to justify, even though we have declared that lying is bad, we're going to make ourselves feel better about our lies by putting them into categories. So we got white lies, we got black lies. Black lies are those lies that we tell because of it, we're trying to benefit from them personally. And so I'm telling you a lie because I'm hoping that this lie is going to get me something. I'm thinking about an example. I'm trying to talk at the same time. I'm trying to get something out of you. So there are some people who are asking for money, and these are black lies that they're telling. Like they're saying, I have no money, I have no place to stay, I'm hungry, and I just need this money. Okay. Now, some people really do need the money. They really are bad off. I mean, going through a hard time. Let me say it like that. They're going through a rough time. But some people, the research has shown that some people are using this as a means of gaining income. And so this is a black lie. This is the category of black lies, where we're saying, I'm trying to benefit from this personally by telling you this lie. It's not that I'm really hard up. It's not that I'm really having a rough time. I just want to get some money, and I don't want to work for it. I want to work. Well, this is the kind of work I want to do for it, because I do think that that's work. I think that's work, to stand on the corner from 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon in the sun and the rain and whatever. I think that's work. So this is the way that I want to work. So we've given this category a name called black lies, and these are universally condemned lies. These are what black lies are. They're universally condemned, and they are you use them for personal benefit. I knew somebody was going to say that. I was waiting. So here's Lo with this comment. White versus black parallels good versus evil. And then when we use, and so when artists, back in the day, before we constructed race, the colors, white and black, did not have anything to do with humans. Like these were colors. These were colors that people used for beautification purposes. Like we wanted to make something pretty. We wanted to use it to, for those of us who work with paints and work with colors, we want to add black because we are creating a tone from it, a shade from it. We want to add white because we're doing something else. Like there's a reason why we're using these colors to affect the other colors, to give you an image that I want you to see. I want you to see pink, but I want you to see pink in a different shade. I want you to see pink that has a darker, deeper tone. And so I'm going to add the black for the tone. I'm going to add the white for the shade. And that's all it was. But now, because of racism, because we have constructed this thing called race, then now we have, we then say that, We then say, I was trying to get that out for there, but anyway, we then say that what is white is right, is superior, what is black is not. So the white lies are the less, they are the least serious, they are the least impactful. So they are white, so they are less harmful. So when you attach that to white people, they are less harmful. And then when you say black means that I'm trying to use this for personal benefit, and it is universally condemned. So when we then attach that to black folks, well, when I see somebody that is black, I'm attaching this value of blackness to it, then I now put you in a position where you are less superior, that you are in fact inferior, even in this category that we're talking about with lies. And so that is the harm and the destruction of racism in our lives. Here's a comment. Right. Angel food cake is white. Devil's food cake is black. If you want to get married, you're supposed to get married in a white dress. And when you want to die, everybody wants to put you in black. Yeah, they've taken the colors and they've added the values that have come from the harm caused by racism. No doubt about it. But there are also gray lies. So there's a category of gray lies where we say this means that it is like a lie of omission. Like I'm not giving you all of the information. Like I'm telling you some truth. It's just that there's more information that I can share with you, but I'm choosing not to share with you. I'm intentionally leaving out some information that could be very important to you. And so that's a great lie. I know I'm doing it and I'm doing it on purpose. I'm not giving you all the information that you need. What's happening with our education system right now or what's happening in the world right now around diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I was just reading that Walmart is rolling back their efforts on diversity, equity, and inclusion because of the backlash. And so now, so those of us who are trying to give people all of the information that you need to make the best decisions for you, the better decisions for your life, you need to know that the human story includes the contributions of Black folks, all members of the African diaspora, and the harm and destruction of white folks, the system of whiteness that's connected to the system of chattel and slavery, and chattel enslavement. Then we want you to have all of that information. And this world is like, no. We want to tell you some gray lies. We want to omit some very important parts of the story. And we want you to operate on less than the truth. And that means that you're not going to be able to make the better decisions because you don't have all of what you need. And there's also a category called red lies. Look, y'all, this is what I'm saying. The point I'm making is that we have decided that lies are bad. But because we want to justify our behavior, because we need to justify our behavior. Let me tell you why we need to justify our behavior. Because we are human. Because we are human, we need to be able to recognize the limitations of being human. So because we are human, because we are limited by our humanity, we are going to tell lies. That should not be considered a bad thing. It should be considered a human thing. And so if I'm responding to it as a human thing rather than a bad thing, then I can preserve your humanity while also offering consequences for your behavior. But if I say that you are bad, that as a human you are bad, now I am dehumanizing you, and I'm giving myself permission to treat you other than human, less than holy, because I've attached this value of bad, this judgment of bad to your life, to you as a person. And so that's why that's the importance of this. Like, we have to stop using these words and making people diametrically opposed to each other because you lie and I don't. Well, actually we all do. But because we're trying to justify the fact that we are human, then we create these categories. So the red lies are when you intentionally harm somebody. I'm telling you a lie because I'm trying to harm you. So that this would be like in a case of cyberbullying, where we have our children who are sharing things with other students across social media, and they are telling them things that they know will hurt them, and they are hurting them in a very deep and painful way, and they are and it's causing some children, as a matter of fact, who are committing suicide as a result of this. So these will be red lies. These are lies that you are intentionally telling so that you can harm another person. So Riri says, never looked at it like that, but it makes total sense. We are just human. And so that is the other problem with holiness. And that's what I want to make sure that we have this conversation about holiness, because in our pursuit to be holy, we take out our freedom to be human. Because when I say things like, in order to be holy, you got to be good. And to be good means you don't wear makeup, you don't wear pants, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't listen to music, you don't play cards, you don't dance, you don't have sex unless you're married. You don't kiss anybody that you're not married to. Like we have this list of do's and don'ts that we've put into categories of good and bad, and they deprive us of being human. It is human for two bodies to be attracted to each other, regardless of the gender. It is human to feel the energy of attraction when you are around people. And all of us have the energy, and we're not attracted to the same energy. But somebody, when you walk in the room, is like, oh my, I mean, electricity. It's like, oh my goodness, they absolutely are drawn to you. That is normal human behavior. So for us to say, for you to desire to be romantic with a person, for you to desire sex, for you to desire to be touched, for you to desire to have these relationships, for us to say that's not good, that you are now bad, and therefore you are not holy, then we deprive the person of what is naturally happening in their body, and we set them on a path that could end in some dire consequences. Let's think about it. For people, especially for teenage girls, young girls, we want to tell them that it's bad for them to have sex. If you have sex and you're supposed to be a Christian, you're going to go to hell. And so now all of these feelings that I'm having in my body that are natural, that are human, that are supposed to happen, I'm having to suppress them because my mom and them said, my dad and them said, my cousin them said, the preacher and them said that I'm going to go to hell. And so what do? I'm still human. I'm still having these feelings. So now I'm going to try to hide this behavior. I'm going to go over here with this little boy that light made me light up when he came in the room. Or I'm going to go over here with this little girl that made me smile on the inside when she walked into the room. And we're going to begin to touch and feel, which is normal, which is human. And then she gets pregnant and you're like, oh my goodness, the Lord is mad at you. You going to hell. Well, really, if we had not told her that her body was bad, if we had had a real conversation about what it means to be human and to have these feelings and these desires, and to know that puberty is going to hit you like a ton of bricks and you're not going to know what's going on, all of a sudden you're going to feel like a whole new person and you might break out. And like if we were having a real conversation, if we were saying, hey, once you start feeling this, come on, let's talk. Be like God. Come on, let's reason together. Let's talk about what it means to have these feelings. Let's talk about what it means to be led by these feelings. Let's talk about the dangers of these feelings. Let's talk about the joys of these feelings. Let's talk about what's good and great can come from this. Let's talk about how this can alter your life, alter the path. Like, let's have a real conversation instead of condemning you because you ain't holy if you have sex, which is something you were created to do. Right? And so we have this way of judging folks based on what somebody else has decided is good or bad. And then we slap on that word holiness. If you want to be holy, you got to act like this. Actually, if you want to be holy, what you would do is recognize that it's impossible. It's not holiness, really, the word. Oh, wait a minute. Lo, I didn't even see y'all right here. Lo says sounds like a newborn baby. I've been talking a lot. I'm not sure which part sounds like a newborn baby. Right. It's not possible. Because to be holy means not to be human, because holiness is something that only a God can do. God is the only person that can be holy. Whoever you think God is, that is the only person who can be holy, who can be sacred. And even then, it's because we are putting God in that space. And that's why we ourselves do not have the ability to be holy because we are limited by our humanity. And our humanness requires certain things from us. It requires that we go through this biological process. It requires that we make mistakes. It requires that we burn ourselves even though somebody told us not to touch the stove, we touch it anyway because it's something about that experience of it happening to us that gives us a different understanding than when somebody just tries to tell me about it. I got to go through it before I can really feel it. And so we don't allow people the right to be who they were created to be, which is a person who should not be defined by somebody else's judgment of right or wrong. And here's what I want to use to drive this conversation home. I don't know how many of you are reading this conversation, reading about the situation with a priest in Williamsburg, New York. It was a priest who was approached by a pop star named Sabrina Carpenter. Sabrina Carpenter wanted to use the church as a backdrop in her video. The name of her video is Feather. She's singing this song, and basically what she's saying is, I was in a relationship with a person. Oh, here's Lo. Lo says, seems as if the Bible ignores biology. Absolutely it does. When we, okay, but remember, when I said we're talking about the Bible, we're talking about how we are using the Bible, like how we have been indoctrinated, how we misinterpret it. Yes, it ignores biology, because when we tell people you can't do basically what we tell people, especially in the Christian faith, basically what we tell people is, if you want to be holy, if you want to go to heaven, if you want Jesus to love you, and you want to be in right relationship with God, then you can't do anything fun. You can't have fun. You cannot. You can't have fun. You can't go out. You can't interact with other people. You can't. And so we deprive people of the joy of being human. The joy of being human is to be out here straight chilling, meeting folks, laughing, giggling, getting upset with folks, talking. Like, that's what it means. Because to be human means to be communal. We were created for community. And when we have these kinds of restrictions on us, it deprives us of community, which deprives us of being human, which ignores the fact that I need to be in relationship with folks on so many levels. I need people that stimulate my mind. I need people that stimulate my body. I need people that stimulate my psyche. I need people that stimulate my emotions. So I need to be surrounded by all types of people, because my body needs that. That is that biology that we absolutely ignore when we put these kind of parameters on it and then call it God. And so Sabrina Carpenter wants to use this church as a backdrop for her song's Feather. So basically what the song says is, she's in relationship, I think it's a man, she's in relationship with a man, and then she realizes that this relationship is not good for her. This is not the relationship that she wants, and she separates herself. So she walks away from the relationship, and now she feels light as a feather. So that's what the title of the song is, Feather. Now I feel so much lighter because I have let go of this weight that was around my neck, which was this relationship, because it turns out that we were not meant for each other. And that's another thing that being human is about. Every relationship you enter in isn't going to be the right relationship. The joy of the journey is knowing that. You're going to make some bad, but you don't know who the person is. Remember, we just went through this whole category of lies that people tell. So we don't know who this person is when we first meet them. They tell us all kind of stuff. And so we are in the relationship, and then sooner or later, we're like, wait a minute. And that's okay. Look, chalk that one up, walk away, find another one. It's okay. And so she walks away from the relationship, and now she feels light as a feather. So she has this, there are scenes of her in this church, and I want to show you those scenes. I clicked 8 of them. I've got 9. I had 9 spaces. I had a space for 9 pictures, but I only had 8 pictures. So you're going to see the pictures in the corner right here. These are the same, but the other pictures are different. So here are the 8 scenes, just the 8 scenes I chose. Here are the 8 scenes that I chose from her in this church. So she's in this church. This is a real church. It's a Catholic church, and it's in Williamsburg, New York. And these are 8 of the scenes that I clipped from her video called Feather that she produced in a portion of it in this church. Okay, so y'all see her. And so the Catholic Church has decided that the priest who allowed her to produce this video in this church should be relieved of his duties. Right? This is not holy. This is not sacred for you to allow this church to be used in this way. And so they say, you need to be, we're going to have to talk to you. We're going to have to, at first they suspended him, and now they've looked into some more stuff, and now he's been relieved of his duties. Now, so they're saying that this woman in this church with this video is bad. Okay. But this is the same church. Let's talk about this picture. Now, those of us who are following the Catholic Church and its history of pedophiles, the Catholic Church has a history of sexual abuse by priests in their parish. And instead of suspending priests that they find out have been behaving as pedophiles, instead of stripping them of their rights to be priests, instead of declaring that they can no longer ever serve in a parish, a Catholic parish again, what they do is they would just move them from parish to parish to parish. It's only when the story started breaking around the world, like in Argentina, that's only when it started breaking around the world, then the U.S. was like, wait a minute, this stuff is happening here. It's only in the 1990s in the U.S. that we really started saying, wait a minute, these priests are sexually abusing our children. Now that we just gonna move them around for. But when this man lets this pop star have a video, we got to strip you of your duties. So who gets to decide? So who got to decide that having this video was bad, but moving these priests from parish to parish, that was a good thing? So we can't depend on humans to be able to judge good and bad because we don't know. We don't have the ability. Praying to the black. Oh, you talking about the Catholics praying to the Black Madonna. Well, I don't even, in this case, I don't even want to give them credit for that. If they're using the Black Madonna as a reason for them to say the pedophiles are okay, we're going to move them around. And so this notion of holiness, how are you going to consider yourself to be holy when you are, again, limited by your humanity, your humanity is what makes you think it's okay to justify your behavior. So the Catholic Church justifies the behavior of pedophiles by moving them from parish to parish, and then you consider that to be okay. It must be okay. You must consider it good to respond in this way. But yet this man let somebody come in with a video and you stripped him of his duties. So we cannot allow ourselves to fall into the trap of seeking holiness because it is not attainable. What we should strive for is relationship with whoever it is we believe is bigger than we are, that can give us the strength that we need to navigate this thing called life, because it ain't easy. So that's what I want to offer up for today. Thank y'all so much for joining us for the Good Fight. Be right back here on next Tuesday. Can't wait to see you then. Bye.